Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another installment of Friday Q&A. I hope you've all had a fantastic week, and as always, thank you so much for this week's questions. If you've got questions for next week, pop them in the comments. As always, if you want to do your bit to support the channel, there are links to the music I make with my band Fractal, as well as my Patreon in the video description. You can go and buy a weird guitar person t-shirt or grab something from any of the affiliate links in the video description. All right, let's get straight into this week's questions. And the first one comes from Chris in Cyprus. Shout out to Chris. Cyprus is one place I really want to visit in my life at some point. So hopefully we can do that and hang out or something. But he wants to know how often I change strings and what gauge. Pretty much everything I use on most of the guitars I play kind of frequently, like this guitar, my single cut, the Hamer you saw last week, kind of the 5 or 6 guitars I have on constant rotation. Out of the collection, I use Elixir NanoWeb 10 to 52s, which is great because then I only have to change them, you know, once every 2 or 3 months. If I'm doing a gig where I haven't changed my strings for over a month, then I'll change them. And I'll normally take that other set of strings and put them on a guitar that I don't really play very often, so that I've kind of got a fresh set there. So the Elixirs are fantastic in that regard, and I have them on here at the moment. This is a set I've had on here for about a month, and they still feel really fresh, which I love. And they're kind of slippery. If you don't like the slippery thing, you can check out the OptiWebs. I like those as well, but I just like the NanoWebs for the slippery feeling. I'm kind of used to it. This one comes from Enam. Do you think the upcoming Dune movie will do the books justice? I really hope so, because Dune is easily one of my favorite books of all time, and the trailer looks pretty amazing. Timothée Chalamet, in everything I've seen him in, has been amazing. So if anything, I think he will be a great Paul Atreides, and hopefully the rest of the movie delivers as well. The trailer really got me excited, so I'm definitely going to go and see that one when it comes out. This one is from Chris Hastings. Hey, I have to say thanks to Chris. He loaned me his Marshall 9004 preamp that you saw during the week side by side with the JMP1. Chris, I have to send that back to you, so I'll be in touch over email to get your return address and get that out to you this week. But he said if I hadn't already got into the Axe-Fx, would I get an Axe-Fx 3 or a Kemper? It's a hard one to say, because once you go down that rabbit hole, you pretty quickly figure out what you like. I've shown the Kemper a few times on the channel, and I think it's a great solution for people who want something they can just kind of plug into to get amp tones from. Having said that, especially with the latest firmware on the Axe-Fx 3, it's hard to go back. It's hard to go back to amps after using this thing. So yeah, I'm gonna safely go with the Axe 3, but I'm sure you all knew that anyway. This one's from Tim. He says, a question for next week: do I own a Gibson SG? I do. I've got an old early 70s SG that was pretty beaten up. I've done a few videos with it on the channel before, but it's currently over at MT Guitars here in Perth. Shout out to Tim for all the work he's done on my guitars, and he's kind of rescued a few of them as well. If you're in Perth and you want a plec or a really great refret, hit him up at MT Guitars. But he's got my SG at the moment, and we're in the middle of like a full-on restoration on it. So if all goes well, hopefully this year that will get knocked off, and you can all see and hear this SG in all its glory. I'm sure it will probably be better than it's ever been once Tim's done his kind of magic on there. So look out for that video. That one should be a really fun one, and I need to get around to Tim's and maybe do another plec video for you all to check out, because I know there were questions about that. If you've got any plec specific questions, let me know in the comments as well, and hopefully I can get to them when I do another one of those videos. Alrighty, I'm so jealous of the Kramer guitar. That's from Sean. Sean, it's actually a Hamer guitar, not a Kramer guitar. I can see why that would be super confusing, because Kramer were making super strats when Hamer were making super strats as well. Alrighty, so there's that one. It's a Hamer, and it's not a hammer either, as several people have said. But you know what? It's a confusing name. You know, Paul Hamer was unlucky that, you know, his last name was Hamer. What else are you going to put on the headstock? Hey, let's put Hamer. That makes sense. But then people are like, oh, you mean Kramer? You mean Hammer? I'm sure there's a Seinfeld joke in there as well. So let's see. This one comes from Jim at Solar Guitar Studio. How hard do I pick the strings? You know what? I don't know, because there's some people I'll play in front of and they're like, oh, wow, you really pick the strings hard. And other people who are like, oh, you've got a light touch. So I don't know where I sit in kind of the universe of string spankers. I grew up loving Stevie Ray Vaughan and Gary Moore, and they're guys who really look like they smack the strings. So in general, the last kind of 12 to 18 months, I've really been working on not trying to press too hard and not trying to pick any harder than I need to. If you're doing a legato thing or a nice chordy thing, it's lovely to have like a soft touch, especially if you're not picking. I find that if I want to do the light stuff, I just won't use a pick at all. That kind of thing, you can hear the ramp up in intensity even though I'm using a really clean amp model at the moment. What I find is more important than like how hard you pick is how deep the pick goes below the string. That's really going to determine a lot about the tone you get out of the guitar. If you're just brushing the string versus really sinking it in, that's going to make quite a big difference. I'll give you an example on one note. I'll start really like giving it a little bit of pick, and then I'll just try to hit as hard but show it more pick. Also, stuff like the pick angle and the pick slant are super important as well. So it's a really good question, and it's, I think, probably an overlooked part of a lot of guitar technique. This one comes from, I'm going to make a meal of your name, and I apologize as someone whose last name, and no, my last name actually isn't Todd. I don't have two first names. I've talked about that before. Leon Todd's my, nom de plume, but as someone who has like a really long last name, I apologize for this. This one comes from Vikramit. Hopefully I said that one correctly. Have I ever tried the Palmer speaker simulator? I haven't, but that was one of the first things that, reading about, as you said, guys like Eddie Van Halen and Joe Bonamassa, what they use in their rigs, always fascinated me. It's like, how do you simulate a speaker in a box? And now I spend so much time, with my load box, running it into IRs on my Axe FX3, or you've seen my video talking about like silent recording at home with amps using a load box. I wouldn't say they're mainstream, but they're far more common and easy to get your hands on now. But the Palmer seems like the OG right there. So what lens do I shoot these videos with? So I'm using a Canon EOS M50, or EOS as I always say. I don't know what you're meant to say, but it comes with this 15 to 45 millimeter kit lens. So I'm using that, and it's on the 15 millimeter setting. So that's what I'm using for all my videos. I've got a lens adapter so I can use other lenses, but I just kind of stick with this one and go. Alrighty, could you use the Eventide H9 as a preamp and effects for gig in a pinch? I wouldn't say you could really use it as a standalone backup for an FM3 or a Line 6 HX stomp or anything like that. You might be able to get away using like the pitch fuzz algorithm or something. But yeah, you don't really have a speaker sim in that, which I think is really important. I could definitely get away just running it in front of a single channel amp. I think that would be fine. But yeah, stuff like the FM3 and the HX Stomp can run far more blocks at the same time than the H9. The H9 is very much like a kind of set and forget piece of, you use it as an effects block rather than an entire rig. The Poly Effects Digit would be better for that, and I've built some kind of like rock and metal rigs in that. Even though it's got some basic amp sims, I think they're really good, and it's got great stereo reverb IR loading and cab IR loading in there. It's a beautiful thing in there. So yeah, speaking of which, I'm using the Roland SRV 2000 as a reverb at the moment. I think I have it on one of the rooms, and I quite like the sound. I got to do a standalone video with this. I did a video on the delay mode during the week, but not the reverb. A lot of people kind of dump on it, but I actually kind of really like it. So, alrighty, where are we at in the questions? Quite a few people liked some of the suggestions last week, which was really cool. I would say as well, there were a couple of questions. This has just been like the buzz in the online guitar community as well. If you go and check out Shane from In the Blues, he has an amazing YouTube channel. I love watching his videos. Not only do they always sound good, not only is his presentation style awesome, but his videos look so good as well. Yeah, that dude's got it nailed. But he did a really great video during the week about, you know, when you watch a video and it comes up in the bottom corner like includes paid promotion, kind of what that all means. And I will say I did a video a little while ago just talking about like, can you trust my demos or my reviews? So again, just to re-clarify for anyone who wants to ask specifically in relation to my channel, if I get sent a pedal to review or something like, you know, the NUX MG30, which I was sent to do a video with, and I don't really do reviews, I just kind of more like plug in and do stuff, you will see that little icon on there. If I haven't done it in the past, I'm in the process of going through all my YouTube videos. So there's like thousands of them. It's going to take me a little while and make sure that I've updated that on all of them. So that was a really good video, and hopefully that will kind of clarify any questions there. But I do not accept cash to make any of my videos on this channel. If I start doing it, I'll tell you all about it as well. So yeah, check that out. I think that's easier than starting an OnlyFans account for me as well. So this one's from Gordon Tubbs. Which tone would E.T. use to phone home if E.T. could phone home with a tone? There you go. I think that has to be the title of the video right there. This one's from Jonathan. What's the oldest guitar I've played? I would guess probably I've played like a 1940s Gibson J45. I reckon that might be the oldest. Maybe. Unless I've played something from like the 19th century, like an old classical guitar. I don't know. That's a good question. I think the oldest electric I've played is a like an L series Strat, but it was a left-handed one, which was really interesting. I've never played an actual like 50 Strat or Les Paul or anything, so that's pretty cool. A few people mentioned that Operation Mindcrime's their favorite Queensrÿche album. I think that's the big divide in the Queensrÿche fandom, isn't it? Have you never seen me with an Ibanez, and why? This one's from Fabio. I've got a Desert Yellow RG550. I'm just not super into the trem and having to maintain it and keep it in tune, but it is a really cool guitar. So you can go and check out my Listens to Racer X Once video if you want to check that one out. I've used it for a few videos. It's just such a cool looking guitar. I love the aesthetic, but I don't know, the neck's a bit too thin for me. The trem, the locking nut, it's all a little bit too hard once you've played one of these, but I always enjoy a good Ibanez from time to time. Alrighty, we're cruising through these questions. What does this say? Oh, okay. Yeah. Trio works for King's X, so you go the Leatherwolf route and use 3 guitarists. Molly Hatchet as well. Shout out to any 3 guitar bands out there. A few people asked about Saigon Kick, especially after I talked about those chords yesterday. I really like Saigon Kick, and I always remember years ago I think we played at the Whiskey in LA, and someone came up to us and said, hey, you know who you guys remind me of? You guys kind of remind me of Saigon Kick. And it's probably not a bad comparison. They were sort of the weird, like slightly heavier, nastier band around that era of like hair metal bands. I think they got lumped into it, probably incorrectly. But yeah, we've kind of always felt like that, where we are either always the least heavy band on a bill, it's like Ragdoll plus 4 thrash bands, or we're the weird super heavy band on a bill with just a bunch of like straight up 70s rock style bands. So I will take that comparison to Saigon Kick right there. There was a great few people wrote to me, shout out to Angus Clark as well, and if there was at least one other person, I think it might have been John, who wrote to me talking about Chris Oliva's rig. So I do want to do a video about that in the future, just kind of breaking down all of that, because there's quite a long comment on there. I think it was John, and it's awesome. Thank you so much for the info, both John and Angus on there. A tour of this cave, it's very much a cave. I actually call it the Guitar Dungeon. So there will be that, and there will be a thing on like how to mic a cab and just generally how to make a YouTube video if you're a guitar player. So that is in the works. I think I've been talking too much. I need to play some guitar. Something like that. Thank you to Rick Kakaza for his really nice comment as well. This one's from Curtis. Does it make a difference if the cab is placed after most effects on the FM3? Yes, the reason a lot of people put it before any stereo time-based effects is you can run a mono cab and you can maintain the stereo image of all your effects if you place them after there. If you do want to place it at the end and you're running stereo delays, reverbs, pitch effects, and you want to maintain that stereo image, you need to set the cab to stereo. The easiest thing to do is to load in the same IR into both slots and pan them hard left and hard right. That will maintain your stereo image. But I just like to load one up and put it earlier in the chain right there. Alrighty. Have I ever played a Friedman guitar? No. And yeah, shout out to Michael Nielsen and that episode of Tone Talk everyone's been talking about. That was a good exercise in just extravagance, I think, and a very good episode as well. Shout out to the two Mikes, Torin, and to Michael Nielsen, and to Dave and Mark for that show, because it's such a wonderful show. I love watching it. It's ultimate nerd talk right there. So, alrighty, we have time for a couple more questions in here. This one's from Jesse. You enjoyed the ambient synth stuff. I think it's going to be back for next week. Have you ever checked out any virtual versions of the classic analog synths? I have. I've got all the Arturia stuff, and that's an amazing collection right there. Highly recommend. Alrighty. Where are we? This one comes from Julian. Have I ever considered doing a Fractal style course? I like to put a lot of this stuff just up so that it's accessible for people, but that is something I would consider doing through my Patreon. So if anybody wants to see that and jump on the Patreon, let me know. This one from It's Me, the Seventh Seal. That's a cool name. Let's see. We need a full successor to Back to Zero. We do. We've been working on it for a little while. You know, we kind of lost a year there, just like everybody else lost a year there. So it's gonna come when it's gonna come, I think. But I'm pretty excited about it. All the songs we've tracked so far. If you liked Back to Zero, you're gonna love these new songs. And yeah, it's one of those things where you're working on something and you have that kind of desire to just get it out in the open as soon as possible. But at the same time, we can't tour or do anything with that. And having a new release to go with touring and all that kind of stuff makes a lot of sense. So I suspect it might be a little while as well until everything opens up and we can do that. So it would be cool to see a guest appearance by Justin York from York Audio on the channel. I've been talking about that for a while. I think we have to twist his arm and do it. Alrighty, that's it. Thank you to everybody who left a comment last week. If you've got questions you would like me to answer next week, let me know in the comment section. I always love doing these videos and reading through everybody's comments and input. So wherever you are in the world, stay safe, be good to one another, have a fantastic weekend. If you get a chance to play some guitar, play the crap out of your guitars and enjoy it. And I will see you all very soon.